can't make it. Most of the folks on this call know who I am. I'm Elliot Began. I'm with TIG. And what we're doing here is just using this opportunity to have kind of open conversation about all things going on and our take on what we're seeing and answer your questions and just make this kind of a casual, easy conversation. So use the Q&A, use the chat box to throw anything up there that you want to talk about or to give us any grief that you would like to. And then we can also open up the mics at some point later for Q&A. So I'll let Mark and Brandon introduce themselves as well, and then we'll kind of get started. So go ahead, Mark.
Hi, everybody. Mark Feinberg. I'm both CEO of OTHRsource, an on-demand in-store support company, and then also general partner of Feinberg Capital, which is a boutique investment and advisory firm focused predominantly on food and beverage companies, mostly throughout the United States.
All right, Brandon, you're the man.
And I'm Brandon Hernandez. I'm a senior partner at Holbrain Consulting. We're an outsourced operations firm focused in the food industry, mainly in supply chain, QA/QC, co-man sourcing, selection, and negotiation.
So what we thought we'd talk about today, so, you know, when the three of us chatted about doing this, and we're going to try to do more and more of these just to create little simple windows of opportunities to share what we see and what's going on, but also to hear from you and be able to respond as well, was just to talk about what we're seeing and is happening in the stores and where the stores are at this moment in time, what's happening around funding, both things that Mark can speak to, and then supply chain, the pressures on supply chain, the opportunities potentially within supply chain, and some of the risks and pitfalls and things that everyone needs to be aware of. So again, please use the Q&A because we have plenty of questions we can ask each other, but we'll have a lot more effective conversations if you guide us in terms of what's top of mind for you. But I'll start with you, Mark, and just kind of get your feedback in terms of, you know, what are you seeing and hearing from your team out in the stores? How are things looking? Just give us kind of a view from where things stand retail-wise today.
Yeah. So, you know, some of it is you're already seeing a lot of it on the news, and just I'm sure you're experiencing a lot of it in your own business. But the product, as long as it's on the shelf, seems to be moving. That's the challenge, is that with store personnel being overwhelmed, store personnel not feeling comfortable working in the stores, they're understaffed, and as a result, product is not making it to the shelf as quickly as all of us would want to. At the same time, and Brandon might be able to talk to this as well, we are hearing that the product is not making it to the store as quickly as we would want it to. So there's kind of a double whammy in certain situations that we're seeing pretty consistently across the United States. Our company covers the U.S., both traditional grocer, club, convenience, drug, and across the board, we're seeing it both that there's delays getting the product to the store, and then there's delays getting product to the shelf. In terms of categories, I mean, it's snacking's flying off the shelf, candy, chocolate, ice cream, frozen. Those really can't stay on the shelf quick enough. I mean, as soon as they enter the store, as soon as they get on the shelf, they pretty much move.
So a couple questions around that in terms of, you know, what percentage of your people, I mean, are you still getting people into the stores? You know, what are you doing with your team in this moment in time?
It's getting more challenging. In terms of the retailers are happy to have us there, generally speaking. The the fear factor, though, is definitely playing a role. And then we as a company, we certainly do not want to put our people in harm's way. And we're giving folks a choice. I mean, if they want to go to the store, we support that, but if they don't feel comfortable, then don't do it. I can say within the last couple of weeks, well, not the last couple of weeks, really the last week, our execution rates were hovering around 100%, and now they've definitely tailed off the last week. And a lot of that has to do with just being comfortable going to the store. The responsiveness from the store management has been remarkable. I know they're overworked and they're tired and very appreciative to have the extra set of hands. We are deemed essential by our brands in terms of the legal documentation that we have for our brand helpers to go into the stores. So we're not running into really any issues in that regard. But really it's just around people making the decision not to go to the stores, which I certainly understand. I'm not sure I fault them.
Cool. Yeah, I think it's a tough time, and I think it's uniquely region by region, and I would assume that it's going to get tighter and tighter and in the near term.
Yeah, Texas has particularly gotten tight.
Yeah.
I know as we start moving into deemed necessary to wear masks and gloves, I think that's going to create another layer of potential change. So we're watching that carefully. And then also we are continuing to recruit and train and deploy. There definitely is an interest from the community out there as we continue to recruit, train, and deploy. People want to work. So in areas that, some of our people might not feel comfortable going out, if we start to recruit and we start to train, there is interest out there. So, but from a human standpoint, we're just we're managing it too and trying to make the best decisions because we don't want to put our people in harm's way. So we're balancing all that.
Brandon, I mean, one of the things obviously we're hearing a lot about is the pressure on supply chain, especially around co-mans and how much, they're having to produce and making decisions. Just kind of give me and give the folks listening a sense of what you're hearing, learning, and any best practices that brands should be employing right now.
Well, I think the overall advice currently is just to, everybody needs to kind of stay calm for the moment. I understand right now what we're seeing and what's being reported is that it's not a supply issue, it's a demand issue. And that right now the internal trucking systems that Kroger's and Walmart's attempt to deploy, they're just having problems keeping up because the demand is so high. And so every time they fill a store shelf, it gets wiped out. So realistically, what I've advised people, at least in the last couple of weeks, is don't go setting your next 90-day manufacturing windows to try and deal with this spike. Let's say, like, account for it a little bit, but don't continue to assume that it's going to turn at this kind of rate. People go back to what they know and what is stable for them. That's beans and pasta and things that are very shelf stable, can be made in a huge abundance, but eventually people will revert back to the higher end brands. Again, I always pick on granola. It's not intentional, but the $8 bag of granola. Eventually I'm going to get back to getting that because that's what I enjoy. Right now, people are just worried about the fundamentals, but eventually they are going to pivot back. And manufacturing's, they're going to do everything they can. I'm pretty bullish on the fact that manufacturing and supply chain's not, the manufacturing part of the supply chain is not going anywhere. Some of the trepidation in the supply chain was when they were talking about closing borders, but did a really bad job of they did it for personnel traffic. They didn't do it for commerce, meaning that your fruits and vegetables are still going to get here. India shutting down, that's going to hurt. China only being at 50% manufacturing, that's going to hurt. But it's not the impossible dream to continue to do what you're doing. This is a time to pivot into your supply chain partners, whether it's raw material or manufacturing, and really start to leverage whatever relationships you've cultivated over the years and start to talk about, can I get extended terms? Can I contract for something that maybe I should have been thinking about contracting for before? It's not an imminent concern. It's just something that I think it's one of those deals, you don't get what you don't ask for. And so we're encouraging people pivot a little bit and start to talk. They're going to start to feel the pinch if you do. So it's to their benefit to work with you and to try and help understand what they can do best with you as a partner with you, because they are part of your company, whether they're a manufacturing asset or a raw material asset. So we're encouraging people, don't set your production schedules and everything based on the current demand. Everybody's getting wiped out. Do some historical trending, do your year over years like you should be doing. Your sales team, your finance team, and your supply chain team should all be in each other's hip pockets constantly right now. How are we going to do this? How are we going to deploy that? I mean, the big thing where people can see some savings in the supply chain is that the demand for trade spend is not, for the next at least 90 days, is not going to be 90 days to maybe even the rest of the year, is not going to be what it's traditionally been. Is there a way to convert that into either doing good or, extending the life of the business? It's really something that people need to start exploring sooner rather than later. Everybody was so panicked in the beginning with good reason, but now it's time as a business owner to pivot and say, okay, what does my 90, 120, 180-day outlook look like, and how do I lay that out in a strategic way that I can continue to maintain a business as usual posture? And really that is your supply chain and your finance team really helping you navigate that, because as a CEO, I need to know everything that's going on in my business, but we're big that I don't need to know how the watch is made. I need it to tell time. And this is the time that there are certain parts of your business you need to know how that part of the watch is made. So pivot to it and see how best you can support those pillars of your business to make sure that you survive this 90 to 180-day window that we're all on a wild ride for.
So one of the things that is getting asked a lot, and I'm hearing a lot of different advice, and I vacillate between whether I think it's sound or not. And I think it's really, specific to your co-man, but one kind of school of thought is to get as much line time as you can, run as much product as you can now, so that you're not, at their mercy, or if there is a further ratcheting down or constraint on capacity later. But of course, the risk of that is that puts a massive, taxing on your cash flow if you're building a lot of inventory, and there's a lot of unknown of what is demand going to settle. Is there going to be a precipitous drop off in demand as things normalize? And there certainly was panic buying for essentials, but we have to also recognize that the vast majority of out-of-home consumption is gone, so it's moved to retail. But just curious in terms of that, are you advising your brands to build inventory, to take as much line time as they can to be forward, or are you taking it case by case?
I think in this instance, we're going at it in a case by case basis. The reason being is that everybody's in a different financial position, and that was the point of your sales team and your finance team talking to each other consistently. Because the fact of the matter is, if I tell you to go fill 90 days of projected POs that you have on hand, and we're seeing it in coffee chains and all that. They're coming back and they're revising POs 24 hours before you're getting ready to execute against them. So realistically, it doesn't benefit me to tell somebody that can't afford it, go fill 90 days worth of inventory. Realistically, you have to sit down and you have to see from a cash flow perspective what's beneficial and what isn't to you. And that's something where we sit down with a brand and say, okay, if we pulled the trigger on 90 days worth of inventory, you need to do a crash budget. And what would you survive at that crash budget if I told you to go and spend this much CapEx on finished goods inventory? Realistically, this is the time to lean into people that at Walmart or at Kroger or at Amazon. If for no other reason, they have the data linked to people's spending habits, and they're going to have it first. And so the more line of sight you can get into that and understand, okay, when, depending on what category I'm in, when does it look like I'm going to start to see sort of the tick back to either normal, or whether that's coming up to normal or coming back down to normal, they should be able to help you understand that data and say, okay, over the next 90 days, you're going to see a drop off of 60%. Well, okay, great. Then I didn't need to fulfill 90 days of inventory at this level. So we're trying to advise everybody as much as possible. Be strategic in your thinking, and certainly your supply chain team, your finance team, your sales team, they all need to be interlinked and at the hip every day. If whatever it was, you should be doing it twice as much, because you need to know everything that's going on in those three pillars, because each one of them right now is going to live and die off of each other.
If I could just add one thing to that, I know in some of the conversations that I'm having with some of the companies I'm invested in, as well as advise, and then also are on the OTHRsource platform. If you are in an ABL inventory lending relationship, there are some lenders out there that if you have pre-existing relationships, they're willing to work with you. I don't want to use the word aggressively, but willingly. And, depending on what category you're in, depending on what the shelf life is of your product, being able to leverage those relationships the right way are certainly helping in cash flow, and I am seeing it. What I can't speak to is how readily ABL groups are taking on new business. It seems like some are slowing down. It seems like some are willing to establish new relationships. But for those folks on the line that have an existing ABL, you'll definitely want to get on the phone with them and see what they're willing to do to work with you, because that is something that is helping in the cash flow standpoint for certain groups.
And just so you know, Feinberg loves to talk in acronyms. So ABL is asset-based lender. So just in case you're wondering, it makes him, he's too cool.
Thank you for the decoder ring.
That's it. One of the things too, just Brandon, just curious on is I think it's really important to have this conversation with your co-man in a participative way. Is, hey, what's your outlook? What are your concerns? What are your contingency plans? Because if you get an understanding of where their mind is at, then that can help guide you as to whether you build your inventory or not. And also, you want to be mindful of the impact that has on them. So it's a good time to be a good partner, is I guess what I'm trying to say, with your co-man.
Well, and that's a pointing as supply chain. I'm not just referencing your raw material suppliers. I'm also referencing your manufacturing partners, that you should be having proactive conversations. What's your line utilization look like over the next 90 days? Are there certain terms that we can come to in a short window that say, okay, you were a turnkey solution, but this is an ingredient that's specialized to us. Can we take it off your books for a little bit to help? There are things that you can do to try and help sort of pivot that relationship, and certainly having proactive conversation is certainly one of them. Now, if it's a capacity constraint, what is it that we could do to help? Is it a cheap piece of equipment that goes in line, all of a sudden you can do twice as much? Are you having a personnel issue? You have to sit with them and understand what their pain points are. And that way you all can address it in a timely and as a team. Because that's where most manufacturing relationships fall down, is that you lose that ability to, that rising tide lifts all boats. You don't, for whatever reason, the relationship degrades over a singular issue, or if there's multiple QA issues, there's multiple reasons for those relationships to fail, but certainly more communication right now, not less. And certainly with, if nothing else, all these webinars and everything that everybody's have that face-to-face interaction. It's real easy to get spun up in an email. You know, people take something different, they take it wrong. We have all these web tools now. Utilize them. I mean, they're relatively cheap and easy to deploy, and you know, you can have a face-to-face interaction with somebody. That's something that I think certainly states with lockdown procedures, that's something that people need. So, you know, having those conversations and being able to look somebody in the eye still and say, hey, you know, how can I help best you? How can we help each other? Because we need to get out of this together. It are definitely conversations I encourage anybody to have, whether it's a manufacturer, a supplier, whatever.
Yeah, and this is a great tool. Although after yesterday's webinar, I had someone point out that I had a great face for a podcast, so I had to get over that one. It's also a good time to not fall on the sword for your tailing SKUs. I mean, the reality is that what was once, you know, something that you were measured heavily against, which was order fill, they're not paying as close of attention to it right now. And if you can help your co-man and yourself by letting some of those SKUs go out of stock, then so be it. Hey, Mark, just a couple questions that came in, and they're similar, and that is, any feedback on the kind of traffic stores are seeing today? Is it beginning to tail off at all, or is it still, you know, the stores are very busy or have, you know, peak rushes during the day?
Yeah, so the panic buying that you referred to earlier has generally subsided, and it seems as though it's returned back to some sense of normalcy. You know, a lot of stores have put restrictions on the number of people that are allowed in the store at any given time, but not only does it seem like it's returned to some semblance of normalcy, there's also back to the conversation that we had earlier of the unknown. There's an expectation that it's going to go in waves, whether it be different news that hits that sends people quicker into a store, or, for example, Georgia finally decided to issue a shelter in place, and the expectation, and what we're also seeing, is that there seems to be another rush to the stores. So some of it is also just in terms of what the government and what the regulatory environment's looking like. So if the president issues a national shelter in place, there's an expectation that will cause an increase. And then also what we're seeing is, because the grocery stores in so many categories have run out of things, the whisper will come out that a shipment of XYZ has hit the store, and then there's another rush. And obviously, you know, a lot of the bare essentials that we've seen on the news, so those are the ones that, you know, get out real fast, and then there seems to be a big push, and then things settle down for a little while.
Let's switch gears a little bit. You know, when the three of us got on a call and just kind of riffed on things, and we're talking a lot about the opportunities that actually exist in the market, and what this whole kind of this interruption, this disruption in what was normal is causing, and the type of seed chains that are happening from it. And, you know, one of the ones that I think is very important to communicate is the fact that I think there's going to be a continued premium on capital efficiency. So, you know, I see that some of the, you know, gambling money is going to be off the table going forward. and brands are going to have to be smarter and more efficient with the use of their capital, which means that this movement towards e-com is likely to stay, and that if you're not prioritizing or not e-com enabled, that's something that you should likely lean into. And there's been a lot of contra logic in terms of I'm refrigerated, I'm frozen, there isn't e-com growth opportunities. I see that changing rapidly. I see the economics coming down and becoming more affordable. I see logistics improving. But Brandon, specifically, kind of what are you hearing around that, and what are you guys working with on brands in terms of that e-com enablement, and just give us some feedback.
Well, I think when it's bringing on an e-com channel, realistically, it comes down to your distribution methodology, and realistically, Amazon still, they're prioritizing food. Now they're prioritizing staples, but eventually that pivot will go back to general brands. And so I think for us, what we're letting people know is that make that part of your sales plan, and as you pivot, you get to recoup some of your distribution margin. Like, there are certain things that are advantageous being able to make that pivot. But again, the cadence from a supply chain manufacturing standpoint doesn't change for you. It just becomes another channel to fill. And so again, I keep harping on the same theme right now, is that your sales team, your supply chain team, and your finance team all need to be in lockstep with one another. And as you're reviewing and bringing on those, you need to be able to make it. You need to be able to make those pivots quickly and add them to your manufacturing numbers or your raw material numbers. Also, when you're looking at D2C, especially in an Amazon platform, what may become a choke point is frozen and refrigerated distribution. And so we're encouraging everybody now that if you haven't already started to find a partner that can help you do that, this is the time to really put the pedal to the metal when it comes to finding that distribution partner, because those assets are going to start to dry up probably quicker than anything. So the encouragement right now is look at your distribution patterns, look at your own distribution networks, and then where do you really need to be putting the pedal to the metal to make sure that if your Amazon platform takes off, or when it does, or your Walmart platform, or whatever, or just your general direct to consumer through your own website, when you're ready to when that really takes off, you got to make sure you're able to take off with it.
Mark, anything to add there?
Nothing to add on the e-commerce side per se, other than I do agree that the e-com component of this is here to stay. I don't think retail's dead by any means. I think it's going to take a little time for things to normalize. I see a question that came up here. I don't know if now's the time to address it in terms of, low fill rates. I would keep the pedal to the metal, just to revert back to retail for a second. I would keep the pedal down on making sure that the product is getting to the store. More often than not, we see the products in the store. It's either in the aisle or in the back room. It's not necessarily on the shelf, because the personnel are so focused on bare essentials. But whatever you can do to keep pushing to try to get it to the store is your best promotion. But at the same time, do keep an eye on e-commerce, because this is going to definitely accelerate the move to e-commerce for anybody who had been considering it but hadn't gone into it. Now is a good time to put some added focus on it. But I also think, again, as long as you keep your attention on the store side too, you don't need to promote product right now. You don't need to discount product right now. You just have to make sure your product's on the shelf and it's moving. And it's one of the best trial mechanisms that you could have right now. obviously demos are mothballed for a little while. So the best thing you can do is have your product on the shelf and it's pretty much moving. So don't take your eye off that ball.
I'm going to switch gears a little bit and talk about fundraising. And Mark, obviously, this is something that you're close to. And one of the things that I've shared with a lot of people is that there is still money in the market. In fact, there's quite a bit. I realize that there's concern and uncertainty in the marketplace, and that therefore there's a premium to that uncertainty. But it's there, it's in the market. And I've actually been a part of a couple successful fundraising rounds in the last few weeks. One of the things that we're advising, and I would like to get your feedback on, is that, because of that uncertainty premium, that brands take a hard look at what cash they need over the next 6 to 9 months, that they really look at this being a short-term bridge and then build from there. And that way they can raise just what they need, understanding that those terms are likely to be a little bit different than the market would have allowed for 4, 5, 6 weeks ago. I'm somewhat calling it an apocalypse round. Raise as little money as you can, make the terms exciting to get investors off the sidelines and willing to take the uncertainty on. But just, from an investor's perspective, what are you looking for, and what are you wanting to see in a brand that comes to you?
Yeah, so I can talk to kind of how I've approached it just the last few weeks. I mean, I've got a number of brands who, they need some cash right now, and I'm doing what I can to step in and bridge them. And along those lines, if you've got existing investors, they're going to be the ones who are going to be able to pull the trigger the fastest and help you raise the money to get through this period of time. So whether you call it an apocalypse round, bridge round, but I would agree with that. I would also say, though, that raising money it's just one way of course, of raising cash, right? So, back to my earlier conversation in terms of, can you advance cash on inventory? Are there other things that you can do? Equity is expensive, right? You're giving away pieces of your company. If there are other ways that you can get cash in the coffers, look at those things. But in terms of, capital raising, again, I'm sure you know this. I'm sure this is common sense. But if you have relationships already with existing investors, they're going to be the quickest ones to be able to help you, help you through this. You have the relationship. Chances are they believed in you when they invested you in the first place, and hopefully they still do. And they'll be there to help you through it. In terms of new financing, in terms of new investors, it's going to take longer, I think. I can just speak to kind of my own, my own mentality right now. And I know a lot of folks that invest in the space. A lot of us are just taking a kind of a wait and see. We're not saying no. We're looking at deals, and I see deals still happening. But if things are going to take 3 months, or you thought they were going to take 3 months, it might take 6 months. So I think that's just natural human behavior, that any crisis or shock like this, there's just a certain slowing of, as we all take data in to decide how our behavior should change or shouldn't change. But don't stop trying. Don't think that everybody's not paying attention, people aren't looking at deals. I'm still getting between 10 and 15. I'm a small time investor generally. I'm still seeing between 10 and 15 decks a week. I still review 10 to 15 decks a week. There's 2 deals that I'm still looking to go forward with. And then, in terms of deals that I'm already invested in, I'll mostly provide bridge money to just help them through this period of time. And then again, and I'm happy to talk to anybody on the call about the techno mumbo jumbo speak of ABL and what that all means. But there are some things that you can do there, and there are some groups that are open for business that might be able to get you some quick cash. And then the other thing I would say, and is the last thing, and I know you all heard this, and again I'm just reiterating it, but I don't want to not mention it. Definitely take advantage of what the CARE Act and the SBA has to offer. There is real money there. And again, how much, it just depends on your situation. But what I would say there is take advantage of it. If you have an accountant that you can rely on, they could help you. Any of us on the call could help you navigate you to the right place. But definitely just don't chalk it off as too overwhelming or not enough money. Definitely look at that, because that could help bridge you through this period of time as well.
I think that's great advice. I'll just add to it, just because I don't want to make this into a funding call. There was a 2-hour one yesterday. If you didn't attend, watch it. But just in terms of takeaways and actionable next steps, I think the first thing that I would recommend is, if you don't need to be raising equity right now, don't. But that's a luxury that many of you don't have. So don't give up, and don't feel like it's not there, because it is. So again, just if I were to give actionable steps, look at your cash flow, optimize your capital efficiency, make hard decisions and discernments around what can be funded, what shouldn't be funded, pull back on your trade expense dramatically, if not completely, lean into some of the more capital efficient channels like e-commerce. And then when you have that and you have your 6 to 9 months of runway, certainly exhaust all other funding options. CARE is number 1, asset-based lending number 2, even traditional. But don't do anything that puts your personal financial health at risk. It's not worth it. It never is. And then when all that's done and you have to raise, don't pretend that this uncertainty premium doesn't exist. And if that urgency, the greater your urgency to raise the money, the higher that premium. Because as Mark said, I've heard this from investor after investor, I'm taking more time. I'm being more cautious. I do have money, and if I'm going to act, I'm going to act because I see a sweetheart of a deal. So get a sweetheart of a deal. And if it's a small enough raise, the impact of that raise, that amount in terms of on dilution, in terms of everything else, is going to be relatively nominal versus not having the money you need to survive, to thrive, because that's your number one objective right now.
If I could also add one thing, I had a conversation earlier this morning with a group that I'm looking at making an investment in, and then also I've been advising for a period of time. To your point, Elliot, that there are groups that are going to be looking for the premium for obvious reasons, given the uncertainty. It's normal to feel pressured into doing a deal. It's okay to do the deal if you have to do the deal. To live another day. In this particular case, as an entrepreneur who's looking at potentially having to sell the company, where they would stay on as the CEO, but prematurely really sell the company just because the options are limited. My advice was, even if it's a sweetheart deal for whoever the investor is, try to work with your advisors and your attorneys and any of us on the phone to have clawback mechanisms, if you can. And what do I mean by that? That means if you have to give away a bunch, to get through this period, give yourself a chance to get it back, right? I understand it's a scary time in a lot of cases, and you end up doing a deal because you just feel backed into a corner and you have no choice. But try to breathe for a half a second, leverage your attorneys, advisors of saying, okay, we have to do this deal, but if these certain things happen, you end up clawing back parts of your company, whether it be through the compensation plan, whether it be the way the deal is structured, retaining a piece of the deal, any combination thereof. Now, at the end of the day, none of those things may come to fruition, but at least try. Because there's going to be a group of investors out there, and unfortunately, it's just the way it is, that they're going to, some of it they're looking for that risk premium, and some of it they're just looking to take advantage of the situation.
Yeah, and there's a fine line between a premium, an uncertainty premium, and a predatory practice, right? And I think it's hugely important now to lean on your advisors and your attorney more than ever. But it's also really important to have that open dialogue with the investor, because you'll quickly learn if you have an open dialogue and just say, listen, I understand there's an uncertainty premium here. The market, there's less known than there was 6 weeks ago, but I want to make sure that not only can I survive, but I'm positioned to be able to raise the capital that I need down the road and do what I need to do to build this business. Let's have a conversation around that. And if they're not willing to do it, walk away. There are plenty of other funders and things out there. And you're going to have to be creative, and you're going to have to be resilient. And even if it means, for your business standpoint, sheltering in place, saying no to POs and doing things because you don't have the cash, that is better than making a bad deal. It's all about just surviving to thrive if you're in that situation. And it's, and it's not just those of you who are concerned about, your sales just starting, or you're relatively, or you were hoping that this was going to be your Expo West and this was going to be your spring of growth. This is just as impactful, maybe more so, on the brands that are having unprecedented sales, because the most voracious consumer of capital and cash is growth. So for those of you who are growing quickly, your cash flow is under the most stress. So be really mindful and be willing to say no to the wrong orders, to the ones that aren't going to really make a positive impact on either cash flow, your business strategically, or your EBITDA. So changing gears again, we had a couple questions come up about things like driving discovery right now, or what about more unique or specialty products and so forth. And what do we do in this climate? Well, I mean, I'll give you opinion, and it's only that, and you can discount it, and then I'll let the other folks here give their feedback. But first of all, acknowledge the fact that this may not be the time to drive discovery. I mean, if you are a immune product, a health product, a well-being product, personal wellness, this certainly could be a great moment, not to be opportunistic necessarily in a bad way, but in a smart way, is to use that narrative. But if you're something that is probably going to fall down lower on the attention level, acknowledge that, and more importantly, find ways to be empathetic and top of mind, and just create awareness for your product and live to fight another day. I think long term, what I believe is going to happen is that retail is never going to go away. It's here, and it needs to be here, and we all will shop there, and it still will be the preponderance of the way we buy most of our, food, beverage, personal care, pet care is still going to be there. But it may not be the most efficient or effective or efficient way to drive discovery. And I think a lot of younger brands, specialty brands, they'll find their home on e-commerce. They'll find their home in specialty channels, whether that be colleges and universities, corporate campuses, travel. It could be in boutiques and in places along those lines. And so what I would encourage you is to think, as you think about discovery right now, is to, one, think about where the problem you're solving is most pronounced, or the need you're filling most acute, or where people are living, working, playing when things normalize a bit, and get your product closer to those things, and use retail more as replenishment than discovery. Because as a discovery mechanism, retail is very, very expensive, very crowded, and it really isn't adept at at, at driving that, because there aren't that many mechanisms to do that. But that's my input on those two things. But Brandon, do you have any feel there?
I would say, just from the perspective that, you know, discovery, launching of new SKUs, I think we brought it up at the beginning. I know a lot of large CPG right now, their big push to any brands in the portfolio is to, you know, sort of can whatever new SKUs you had, and it's time for SKU rationalization. And, you know, go with the, for brick and mortar retail, go with the old dogs that worked for you, and just maintain a tried and true. With respect to, you know, discovery and all that, that it's going to be difficult in this climate. If you're a wellness brand or you're a lifestyle brand, you know, it's hard to have a Instagram or a Facebook pitch that is geared towards your, you know, your outdoor lifestyle and all that. That's going to be a difficult play to make. So I would say that discovery, I'm going to echo your point that I think discovery is going to be pretty difficult right now. I think this is the time to rationalize and hunker down, and, you know, go back to it again, go back to your budgets, go back to what has been working well for you, because right now the industry as a whole is going to be looking for little engines that could, and that's what we need. What brand responsibility would be to gear up for that.
Mark, anything to add there?
I would just agree. It all comes back to cash preservation. You're not gonna, I don't think, get the attention you want from the retail category managers. Back to what I said earlier, if you have a product in distribution and it's able to get to the shelf, the best thing you can do is get it to the shelf as fast as possible. It's going to move. You know, it costs money to come up with new products and get the eyeballs that you need. So I would preserve that cash for when things thaw out a bit.
One other question here, and then I'll hit kind of our last topic, and this one is just, you know, and we've talked about it a little bit, but what are the hot categories that investors are looking for that have been made more relevant or relevant by COVID? And Mark, I'll toss that to you first.
To be honest, I'm not sure I could speak to that. You know, hot products. I don't think people are getting too fancy right now. I think, you know, if you take my own eating patterns, and I'm only N equals 1, but I'm seeing it across the board. You know, I'm eating a lot of Kraft mac and cheese, which is kind of a reversion back to my childhood. And actually, there's been a few articles about that, right? Cereal sales, comfort foods, things that are just basic snack foods, chocolate, ice cream, you know, anything that's just, you know, very comforting. I don't think people are getting too fancy. I don't think people are going too out on a limb on trying new things, which gets back into that discovery. I think people are sticking with what they know. I think they're sticking with whatever their comfort pieces are. Now, with that said, some of those products just aren't on the shelf. So, you know, if you have an opportunity where you're in a snacking category and, you know, people haven't tried your particular brand. I know my son and I were out in search of Doritos, and there weren't Doritos, and there was something else, and we bought them and we like them, and, you know, we'll get them again. So there's a lot of that. I wouldn't get too fancy. I don't think investors are in a position to get too fancy and chase things, you know, in other categories. You know, science and medicine, yeah, that's a different story, and I'm sure there's a lot of chasing going on. But in our category, it's a revert back to providing the customer what they're used to, what makes them comfortable, and not get too fancy on anything right now. This thing will thaw out. I mean, you know, we'll get through this, and the consumer will start looking for more innovation again. But right now, just focus on SKU rationalization, what's selling the best, make sure it's available to the consumer, whether it be online or in the store, and focus on cash preservation.
I'll just add a little bit because there's slightly different thought there, and that is I do think that this serves as a tipping point to trends that were already in place. And so I mentioned obviously the one where I do believe more and more sales will happen e-com and more discovery there. But the other ones are immune health, gut health, personal wellness. I just think, you know, people are taking ownership of that for themselves and want that and are craving that. And anecdotally, I can point to the brands that, you know, we know and work with that have seen, you know, pretty significant growth in sales. So I don't think it's necessarily COVID only. I think these are trends that are only exacerbated or sped or accelerated by this reality, and they are tipping points for behaviors that are going to happen. And I think one trend for sure is that you know, Ayurvedic kind of mentality where food is medicine, and gut health, immune health, personal wellness, sleep, stress, all of those kind of things will be there. In our last couple of minutes, oh, go ahead, Brandon.
I have one thing I want to say on this subject, just because I've seen a tremendous uptick in it in the last 2 weeks. I would put this out there only as an advisory warning to people that I've seen or heard or talked to at least a half a dozen to maybe 10 companies that want to launch hand sanitizer or want to launch, you know, better for you, you know, health and immunity, whatever. Let me just be clear that the FDA only loosened the guidelines for pharmaceutical companies to actually make hand sanitizer with label claims. Or so when I encourage everybody, as you're trying to fast track and develop these products, because they are coming to private equity firms rather quickly that are trying to get on board with this, you have to be exceptionally careful what it is you're attempting to claim on the label, because that'll get the FDA is only paying attention to 3 things, and certainly hand sanitizer and the label claims made by people that are new to market are going to be number 1A or 1B on their list. So I just encourage anybody that's thinking about it, just make sure that you're getting with technical or whatever to make sure that it's all put together appropriately, because that'll get you hammered faster than anything.
Awesome. Okay, so last couple of minutes here because we're about out of time, and I want to be mindful. But you know, we had this conversation on our call. We're all 3 entrepreneurs, and I think it's important that we you know, share how we're using this time to look at our own businesses and what we're doing with this period of disruption. So maybe Brandon, I'll just start with what you and Will are working on and what you guys are thinking through.
So realistically for us, you know, we were a remote service sort of to begin with, but we've really started to try and turn into that wave even more. So we're having more teleconferencing, making sure that we're interacting with our own internal teams at a higher level. Again, we've started interacting with our own CFO and you know, our internal marketing and sales team, and we've really tried to pivot our online platforms, whether it's our Instagram or LinkedIn or even our personal webpage. We're trying to pivot that to more educational. You know, we're trying to keep as much real-time data and information flowing through those, whether it's SBA loans, whether it's you know, events like the one that you had yesterday, this event, the event happening tomorrow. We're really trying to bring everybody as much up-to-date information as we can, because realistically, as a service provider, I've never shied away from letting anybody know that I'm an incredibly lucky human being, and this is the opportunity to really give back to an industry that's given us so much. And you know, we take that. I know all 3 of us on this call definitely do, along with everybody that's joined on. But you know, this is the time to get with your stage ones and your propellers and your OTHRsource and with TIG Group and have industry conversations and try and help the industry sort of push through this, because you know, that we're all, in the end, all we have is what we have, and we have to be appreciative of not only that, but we also have to appreciate that that to much that's given, much is expected. And so we have a high expectation of ourselves now to pivot and and try and give as much help as we can to everybody out there. And so that's just, it's an internal edict that a switch that we flipped almost immediately prior to shelter in place, prior to any of that. It was a pivot we decided to make because it's important. It's too important for everything and everybody. And that's how we really feel about it.
It's awesome. Mark?
Yeah, I would echo a lot of that. I think I know the OTHRsource team, and then just my mindset from an advisory and investment vantage point is all hands on deck, right? It doesn't matter that OTHRsource provides in-store support. We'll continue to do that. It's a valuable service that will continue to be valuable, but with my networks, with our networks, it's whatever we can do to be of value. Where are you experiencing the most pain? Who could I connect you to? Who could we connect you to? So we've definitely moved into that role, and will continue to. Like it doesn't matter to me what OTHRsource does right now. Yes, it could be valuable, but it doesn't matter. How could I be of service in connecting dots, or just being somebody there to listen to and be an ear, because we all need it. In terms of other things, I mean, OTHRsource is in a unique spot. We're not a food company. We're a service provider. There have been a number of things that OTHRsource has wanted to bring to market to be in service to the industry for quite some time. We've had a roadmap that is lengthy. That, frankly, we were focused squarely on building out a national field team, in-store support field team, and that was our focus for a number of years. We had other things on the horizon that we wanted to bring to market to be in service. One of those is a multi-vendor online store, an analytics and mobile targeting platform, and a number of other things as well. So we will be accelerating some of those things. So, for example, we will be launching the OTHRstore here in a couple of weeks, to be another platform for brands to sell their products online, and we will help promote those products. But these are some of the things that we are now going to bring to the market to be in service to the industry, to, in my eyes, and it's the same theme that I think we've all talked about and we all share on this call. Cash, 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 cash. How do we get cash in your pockets as fast as possible, whether it be fundraising, whether it be ABL, whether it be advancing contracts, whether it be whatever it is. So our launching the OTHRstore is another way for, in our eyes, to hopefully help you and help the industry get cash in your pocket. So, those are some of the things that we're doing at OTHRsource. And then again, just, for all the companies that I'm advising, it just depends on where they are in their life cycle. Some I'm just saying, hunker down, don't spend another dime. Some I'm saying, okay, you're in a position to maybe push here or push there. It's very dependent on each situation. There is no one size fits all, but cash is definitely king right now.
Yeah, and I echo everything. I think part of why we're doing this is because I think all three of us and so many of us in the industry feel the same way, that we've been blessed and fortunate by what this industry's given, and it's good to give back. But let's not bullshit. It's also really comforting ourselves to be able to see each other and talk and be able to share what's going on. And I think that's just key for all of us. I mean, we all have uncertainty. We're all feeling some degree of vulnerability in our businesses, and we shouldn't, deny that. The key thing that I see is just to take action and look for the opportunity amidst the chaos. And really, there is opportunity for everyone on this call. There's opportunity for everyone in this industry, and be thankful that we're in an industry that can actually weather a storm like this so much better than so many others. And what we're doing is the same thing. One is we're trying to find a way to be a part of the information sharing. Certainly don't have the answers. I don't know that anyone does, but we have the platforms from which to help share and disseminate and communicate and build, some type of virtual community. We have put together a think tank, mastermind group, so forth, of people in the industry from all different aspects, all service providers, and making sure that we're not missing opportunities or looking past better ways to serve the brands in this space. And because I do think there are things that have been pushed or accelerated or changed that aren't going to go back, and it would be both foolish and unfortunate to miss those, and also misguide anyone that we're looked towards as providers of advice and solutions. So there's a part of it is it's super exciting, and there's a lot of upside, and there's a part of it that's scary, and I'm cool with acknowledging both. That I sit with both, and I would say the same. And I'm just glad that we're able to do these and continue to have more of these kind of conversations. And I know all of us mean it, and I'll wrap up right on time, that we are here. We're happy to take your calls and your emails and answer any questions and spend the time on the phone, because just as we can share what we hear and know and learn and have acquired in our experience, we're learning and getting the same back from you. So it's completely reciprocal and cool, and one of the many reasons that that we all feel fortunate for what we do in this, and who we get to do it with. So with that, I'll let everyone off the hook. Thanks for joining us. We will have this recording and we'll share it. And I'll make sure, as we do, we also share everyone's contact information so that you can reach out to myself or Brandon or Mark as needed. And stay healthy, be well, and take care.